Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Shiatsu therapists all over the world, sisters and brothers here, and in our group, Everything Shiatsu. Another week and another great guest. I'm so honored to have all the way from Germany, Barbara Murakami here today with us. Hello, Barbara.
Hello, everybody.
Nice to have you here. And our topic today is shiatsu, children, trauma, disabilities, and much more. So this is a topic that is near and dear to me too. Many of us work with children, and many of us work. I'm sure some of us work with disabilities too. So we're happy to have Barbara here and sharing her insights from working with children and now adults too. So, Barbara, maybe you can share with us your journey a little bit. I mean, you started your work with children as a special needs teacher. Is that correct?
Yes.
And why did you get into it?
Um, First, anyway, I was a teacher, and I found that the children that I worked with, they need different things, not only mathematics and history and so on. And they were very violent and very needy. And once I knew Shiatsu, I thought this might be a great thing for them too. I learned from Shiatsu that somebody cares for me, or I learned how to care for myself. And I thought this is nice to spread that also to the children.
I
So I
understand.
started working using Shiatsu, which I learned separately from my profession, using it in the school. Um, I was lucky enough that it was a private school, and they were more, free with their program. And I convinced the school director by a treatment that this is a good thing for children. And there I was, and then I could do that also during my working hours. Um,
Yeah, but I find it interesting that one would choose to work specifically with children and disabilities. So, I mean, what really resonated with you working specifically with that
why
before you
did I
even?
started to work to take on this profession? This is your
Yes,
question.
yes,
All
yes.
right. Well, this is well, my father was a teacher, and he loved his job and his profession, and he I found that he always cared for those children who found it a bit difficult, and he took extra hours with them. And I just watched it, and I saw that he was quite fulfilled by this work, and so I thought maybe it's a good thing for me too. And
So
so it was some kind of,
you followed your father's footsteps.
yeah, and yeah, so it
How
was some
old
kind of,
how old were you at the time?
when I started studying 18.
Wow, so quite young. And when
You
you
know,
started to work with the kids, did you start in the public school system or the private school
I
system?
know at 18 I started studying.
University. Yeah, yeah.
And working was, of course, much later. And after finishing my training, I went to England for 3 years, and I didn't work in schools over there. I did translation, and then after I came back, I started in the special school. Yeah.
Good, good. And working with those kids, it was not easy, I'm sure. There's a learning curve with every profession, in the helping profession too. There's a lot of burnout that can happen with frontline workers or working in home cares, teachers too these days, of course. And you mentioned in our conversation that you did encounter burnout also.
Yeah, I think that's why I started Shiatsu in the first place. There was a time in my life when I felt really tired and exhausted from also bringing up three own children plus this kind of job. And then it was my Japanese husband who suggested, "Why don't you try Shiatsu?"
Got
Which
it.
I
Thank
did.
God. Thank God that he suggested that, and you did. And what was your first shiatsu encounter like, if you can
Well,
remember?
Wow. The first thing I found was I called there in this practice and said, oh, how much does this cost and how long does it take? And this man said, well, 1 hour. I said, 1 hour, only for me. So this was quite a revelation that somebody can care for me for 1 hour. And so this was the first learning experience. Also, sometimes you need also care for yourself. Yeah.
Of course,
And
of
then
course.
uh, later I found a school in Düsseldorf, lucky
Okay.
enough, who taught Shiatsu, and I said, oh, now this is it. I want to learn that. First, also for my own experience. And then later I thought, oh, well, this, which does me so good, might be quite good for the children I work with. And
Beautiful.
then started using it in school and also separately in the private rooms for adults and adults who had the same situation, like on the burning out. Like I thought, I know what you're talking about. Like maybe I can do something with you and for you. Mm.
Got it. And working with children, of course, it's different than working with adults, I would say. And especially working with children with disabilities, behavioral issues, unexplained physical pains and symptoms that could be tied to stress. Let's talk about some of the conditions, uh, and the space and the process of setting that up, working with with children in particular.
So, well, the conditions you mean what they brought, the issues. Mm.
Yeah, what they were brought, but also the conditions that we as
All
therapists
right.
have to set.
Yeah. Well, as with adults, more so with children, and more so with children with disability, everybody is so different. We bring so different things in, and the conditions are different. Like from children, some have a history of abuse or violence in the house, and some are hyperactive. They can't sit still for a minute, and some are so needy they can't get enough, and many they don't want to be touched to start with. I had many of those. So then you have to invent completely new ways. So I used to work a lot with stories
Mm,
and images to
beautiful.
to to get some kind of trust. Like there were a lot of boys, and boys like cars. So I explained to them, what you see in our body there is something similar to is a road, a street, and sometimes the streets are blocked. So there's a wood, if a tree has fallen down, or there are big rocks or something, and sometimes by touch we can remove those blocks. Those and this was quite just for them. For some of them, they loved it. The story.
Yes.
And so we went down the road, and then there were was so much wood, and we have to burn that, and whatever suits to this child. And some love to eat. And I had one boy, he loves his food, but he also was some kind of suspicious. And so I did, actually, it's not from Shiatsu, it's a common known game, making a pizza. So
Yes.
I worked on his back and made this dough and put cheese on there and so on. And he loved it. And then after that, we did that for a while, then he can relax. And from then on, he came for quite a while, every day, every time. He made some kind of order. What shall we cook today? And sometimes it's pancakes, 7 layers pancakes, or sometimes it's salmon with smoked salmon with potatoes and whatever. And so I had to follow that for some time. And then he relaxed, and then I can do also other things, like more shiatsu type. This I found quite often stories, whatever, or they have this concept about energy.
Yes.
then I can make them feel that between their hand, and then when I put the one hand on the tummy and one on the back, and I thought, no, you see, between my hand is also energy, and just feel, and if you feel something, say yes. So this way I could get them a little bit inside. This is what I could do, or as some the children from school. Of course, they didn't have to pay for the treatment, and then to make them a bit more feel themselves, I thought, I tell you what, outside people have to pay a lot of money for this kind of treatment, but you don't have to do that. But you have to do me one favor. Just you draw me a picture. When you come, you draw one picture, something, how you feel at the moment, and where do you feel, like maybe make a small picture of yourself and how do you feel inside, which kind of color would suit, and so on, and one afterwards. So this was quite nice for me, and then we can talk about how do you feel, and they explained where is what, and so that, and when you can a little bit get something into the consciousness somehow, and or also get them feel more inside.
Yeah,
So
that's a brilliant way of a tactile way, also in a visual way, right? To
yeah,
start
yeah.
that trust and
Mhm.
communication, right? Because oftentimes kids, they don't know what they're experiencing. They just feel so much.
Mhm.
Um, they feel so much emotionally. They're going through a lot of things in their lives, through a lot of stress in their lives, maybe at home, maybe in the school itself. Some of them are being picked on or bullied,
Yeah,
right? And all that stress accumulates inside, and it can manifest, in stomach problems and pain,
yeah,
headaches, migraines, nightmares, bedwetting,
mhm,
right? And this is where I've seen a lot of parents, when those physical symptoms arise, also start taking them to the doctor or to the specialist, and that creates more. I find that creates a lot more stress, and
they
nobody
can.
can really resolve it.
And
uh yeah,
they feel something is wrong with me.
that's right.
Mhm.
That's right. Uh and oftentimes, these days, I don't know how it is in Germany or Europe, but in North America, they're quick to label.
Yeah,
So every school is quick to label that, there's some disorder of some, of some sort, and maybe we should start medicating these kids, right?
yeah.
Because
Mhm.
here they can medicate them as early as, under 10 years old.
Good.
Uh, but if the parents are patient, and usually this is where they bring them to me, and they say, we have this problems, can you fix it? like fixing a car of some sort, and
Yeah. Mhm.
this is where, that trust relationship kicks in with kids, right? But once they trust you and you explain what's going on and why, and let's be curious, what happens if we release here, what happens if we touch here, what happens if you breathe deeper, you could see the relief, the the connection. I'm sure you experienced that. And I don't know about you, but in my practice, I mean, you worked in schools, but in my practice, I have a rule: when parents bring their kids, I force the parents to be treated too.
All
I make
right.
sure that they come for treatments too. Otherwise, I refuse to work with the kids.
That's a good
And
idea.
and I've learned that from past experiences. When I was a younger therapist, and it was so frustrating because a lot of the stress was coming from the house, from the parents themselves, right?
Yeah.
So some of these kids or teenagers will look at their parents as hypocrites. Here, you bring me to be treated with all my
Mhm.
problems, but you are
Yeah.
causing most of them, right? So there's a lot of anger with kids when it comes to, being felt, I guess, by the parents, that something is wrong with them, or teachers. Can you
Yeah.
speak into that a little bit? I'm curious to hear your perspective.
Yeah, of course, in the school, I couldn't bring the parents because this was a school for children whose parents couldn't take care of them at all.
Hmm.
I didn't have to do all that much with the parents. And in children who came to me privately, I didn't have some parents came, but not so many. But what made sure is the parents, they leave. They bring the child and they leave. They don't sit there. So the child can feel free and also can feel free, also know that I don't talk to the parents about him or her. So if they don't want it, so I think, and also I made them feel there's nothing wrong with you. You don't come to me so I fix something. You come here to me to have a good time. To just you can just be as you are, and we have a good time, and then maybe you can grow. So maybe you can discover new things, but not you come here because you misbehave in the school or something. I didn't want to put it this way.
Love that.
So, and of course, I talk to the
The
parents.
fun aspect. Yeah, the fun aspect is so important because kids love to have fun. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Have fun, or it does you good, or they can just relax, and more often than not they sleep in the end. Or also children who have sleeping problems, and okay, yeah, nobody wants anything from me. I can just relax, and this what was enough for them. And then some parents are surprised they come to fetch them and they lie on my mattress and sleep.
That's great.
So and you can work from there. And then usually I get the parents said later they were so much relaxed, more relaxed then, and then things can develop from there, but not
Mm,
me doing something with the kids.
it's so true. That's why I always in my treatment room have all kinds of uh, rocks that I've collected over the years, and actually clients gave me as gifts over the years, and the kids always for whatever reason gravitate right to looking at those rocks when they're lying on my mat on my table because all my rocks are placed on this beam, and and sometimes when they really like a particular rock, we use it in the treatment, and I find using it in the treatment, the kids really enjoyed it, and then there's I usually tend to gift that rock to the
Uh,
child too.
mm,
Yeah, and what ends up happening if they continue to work, they bring me gifts to the kids. They'll make things for me. It's amazing. Like I shared the story with you recently with a 13-year-old kid where his mother brought him to me because she was worried about his spine and his posture. He's a kid who's sprouting so quickly, but he's
mhm.
also having anger tantrums and at home and in school, and you could see he came kind of reluctantly to the treatment room, and his posture was very much
Yeah,
twisted.
yeah,
But instead, the mother wanted to stay in the treatment room. I told her to leave the room, and instead of pointing out his problems, I just in a way painted a picture as if you really don't have a problem. All you have to do is just learn how to stand a little differently. Nobody taught you how to stand, and I usually work with a mirror, and
yeah.
I do some mirror work with adults and kids, and then I take them through a process, and what seemed like a problem that will be difficult to treat all of a sudden wasn't a problem in front of their eyes, right? And for him,
Mhm,
it was like magic. So after that, he was very much engaged in our treatments,
mhm,
and he was so grateful by the end because he wanted to learn. And I find that kids do want to learn. They do want to take tools back home either relaxation tools or even listening to music or doing something with their hands. So I taught him how to do certain routines at home. And he was so grateful in just a few sessions. So there's no problems anymore, right? And he's so gifted too. He started to make during COVID. He started to work with crochet, and he started to make all these caricatures. And
Yeah.
he brought me one that looked like me. It's like a mini me, just a big head. And I'm like, what a talent, right? But he was so grateful for our time together. I find it precious working with kids like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's amazing that relationship. Um, who were some of your influences that helped you in a way of work with kids too in the shiatsu world?
Well, working with children, I didn't have that many teachers. I had one teacher in Hamburg, Gabriele Kechele. She died some time ago, and I think this was more home taught from my experience. And
Amazing,
I
amazing.
think my main teachers were my clients, the children, and also more so the people with disabilities. You can learn so much from them. Also, you can learn so much from about shiatsu because well, with people really stuck to a wheelchair, you can't do a normal shiatsu treatment. So you
That's
have to
right.
think completely different, and then you have to also step back and think what is shiatsu is all about. Is this about meridians going up and down, or is it about five elements, or what is it? And there, I learned so much about the main point is a relationship or being with somebody for some time and get in some kind of resonance. And this is my main teachers, and each individual was so different.
Mm,
And of course, for shiatsu, I had many also good teachers. Like I had, particularly from Germany, well, there's one called Joachim Schriebers. He was he's a Qigong and Shiatsu and meditation teacher, and also he was for some time head of the Shiatsu society in Germany. And he combined Qigong and Shiatsu, and I learned a lot from that. I thought this gives quite a new flavor to your treatment, and I had another one called Rami Yozari from Israel. Also, he does Shiatsu and Qigong
hmm.
together. He's quite focusing on the quality of touch. And this, I think Qigong does a lot for that. And also, he works with images, which is good for me. And I learned from Nick Pohl.
Yeah, clean language. Yeah, great
Clean,
guy.
yeah, and he has also wonderful attitude to shiatsu. He wrote one nice article, which I also included in the book I wrote about shiatsu and clowning, which is wonderful. I thought this attitude is quite fresh to each situation. I don't have any program. I leave the space open and I get in touch with with the people in front of the stage and then see what happens. This is wonderful. And this clean language is a wonderful tool to facilitate processes. Yes.
Yeah, that brings me to well, thank you for sharing that. That brings me to the book also that you co-authored with some of these people that you mentioned. Can you speak about the book?
Yeah. I found many people have wrote some wonderful things, wonderful texts, which are not really shared enough. And I thought I'd just look for uh, articles or texts which suit to my attitude to shiatsu. And I found wonderful people. I found, yeah, like Nick, he gave me this article about shiatsu and clowning. I found Chris McAllister, who you know well, and he gave me also the poetry of touch. Poetry is also a nice keyword for me. And I got a young lady from Holland. She compared the Shiatsu practitioner to a DJ, helping people to find their own melody. I thought this was wonderful. Just please
I love that.
give,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
This I really enjoy to read. And Wilfried Rattenecker wrote something about resonance. And then I found this friend from Israel, Rami Yuzari. He wrote quite different texts. He wrote more poetic. And I think often in Shiatsu books, they're quite factual about five elements and meridians and this and that. And he had much more images and feeling in there. And I thought this is quite counterbalanced to this factuality, which is useful, but it's not enough.
Well, that's the language of the body too, right? The images and metaphors. Yeah, yeah,
Of
beautiful.
course, the language uses metaphors, but this for those texts that's very special, more poetic, difficult to read, but yeah, it gives quite a nice flavor. And then I wrote two own articles, one about shiatsu and children, and one about what kind of framework, what kind of setting does it need to get into touch and get to a good relationship to whoever you treat.
Good. Can we
So
speak into that? Can you go through some of the points? I mean, we don't have time to go through all of it. I read your article; it was so interesting. But can you share with us some of the points there?
uh, yeah, one point is of course not knowing, which is not go into a relationship with a preconception or with watching now what is wrong with you and with diagnosis, but more open uh, uh, with where you are there. I take a fresh look on you and see what kind of person are you, and this is I think where it makes quite a difference, particularly for people who always get valued and labeled, and so this was quite important. And eye level, no, not I am the expert. It can happen quite often that I feel I'm the expert and I have to do something for you, and I will tell you what to do and what is wrong with you. I don't know that. I just, of course, sometimes I share my ideas, but only as an offer. What I just have this kind of idea. What do you think? Does this resonate with you or not? But not. I know what is wrong with you. This is well, it's quite a while ago, and that I wrote it, so I just have to remember what I
Yes,
wrote.
absolutely. Well, it's one that I'll post also in the group. I think it's a great article, but it's all around the inner practice, right?
Yeah, and
What's
also but sometimes but practical things also you have to think about, like how do you set your room? Is this a welcoming room, or does it look like a clinic, or does it look like a living room, or what does it look like? Just so you think about what kind of clothes do you put on? Are you dressed like a doctor with white and so on? And how is the position in the room? Do you straight the person has to lie down and then I sit next to him so I'm on top. So there's nothing right or wrong, but it's nice to look at it. Mm.
yes,
And also I remember what I wrote. Uh, you have to have a lot of different facilities. Sometimes you do more on a young type side. Sometimes you make suggestion, you diagnose, and sometimes you step back. You have to know both. You have to be able to say oscillate between
yes,
different attitudes depending on the situation, not step back all the time, and the other person doesn't have a counterpart, and don't do something for somebody all the time, but it depends.
it's
This is
like
also
it's
one.
it's like a dance, a very
Yeah,
intuitive dance for sure. Um, I like your section about appreciation here, and you did bring up an example of a child being brought to you about posture problems, just like as I described with my client recently,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
how the problem is really not to be fixed, right? And
To
sometimes
start
when we work on the problem, we can in a way reaffirm all the protective barriers there, right?
Yeah, my attitude was first, there's nothing wrong with you. And if any issue you have, we'll have a good reason. So I appreciate it. I will help you to appreciate it first. Because often people come and say, this, everything is wrong with me. I have back issues, I have this, I have that, I can't sleep, I'm depressed or whatever. Yeah, that's how it is. And what do we do from there? It's it's for me. This is important to just first say, yeah, this is how it is. There we are, and now let's go together somewhere wherever the road leads us to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I had a woman, and she listed all the things that are wrong with her, how many losses she's had in her life, and how burnt out she feels, and her cat, who was her little rock for 17 years, just died just before she came, and she's like, what's the point to continue to live? And I'm so weak, like I'm not strong, and I'm 50, and I have not much to show for it, and that's a dark place. uh so I reflected back to her and said, wow, you're one of the most courageous people I've met. Look how many losses you had to go through.
Yeah.
Most people don't have to go through all those losses that you had to go through, and the beginning of your life was so horrific, and you still gone through it and managed and overcame, and when you had all these physical problems and pain and emergency visits, you're still fighting, and now you're so lucky because now you also have love. You found a treasure. You found this man that just suddenly came to your life because she was like, I don't know why he loves me. I'm unwell. I'm so weak. I have nothing to show for it. I don't know why he loves me.
Mm.
Uh, and I said to her, he loves you because he sees how courageous you are. You
Yeah.
know, and she goes, yeah, that's what he keeps on saying. I said, of
Mm.
course. Like most of the people around him haven't been through tenth of what you've been through, and I
Mhm.
complaining all the time. And
Yeah.
you just keep on smiling in a way, keep going, even with all this heartache. So he sees your courage, and that's why he cares for you. You know? And
Yeah.
that lit up some hope for her. And
Mm.
she sent me a nice email this morning saying, "Thank you so much. You've given me hope." Uh,
Mhm.
it's important to reflect what often when clients come to us, they judge themselves so harshly, right?
Yeah.
And the walls of pain or the walls of suffering come in so tight, right? They can't see the whole picture.
Yeah, it's very difficult to help them to change the mind. Maybe which I found is if you soon start to argue, it's not like that. It's not like that. Maybe they feel not seen. So I think also it's important to say, yeah, this is really really hard, and then where do you go from there? Otherwise,
Mhm.
maybe he doesn't take me serious, but with all my heartache and all the things I have. But
Of course.
mm, then look for what are your resources, what are your gold nuggets you bring, and you can you can
So
go with. Oh,
how do you help them harness those gold nuggets? How do you help them find the nuggets, like you call them? Especially because I know that you also work a lot with burnout. Uh, so I find when people come burnt out, it's naturally that they also are depressed, right?
mhm,
Because
yeah,
when you don't have the resources anymore to do what to live in a way every
Mhm.
day, to
Yeah.
execute, to be productive, to maintain this character personality that others need you, you're naturally depressed. You go to a dark place. So how do you help them find those gold nuggets again and find some resources?
Sometimes it all depends, of course, and sometimes I can ask, but it hasn't always been like that. What was it like when you were different? And can you just go back to this time and feel what it felt like? And when once you can go back and feel what it felt like when I was better, I can say, well, it's still there. You found it. It was some kind of covered by whatever. And so maybe sometimes you can go back to this feeling, or sometimes I encourage them just be there for some time, and or find what if this. Can you find an image for this feeling? Sometimes it's an image, or and then you work with this image. Maybe if this was sometimes it's like a racing car. I was used to be like a racing car or whatever. And then I suggest maybe you get a photo from the internet about a racing car and just have it in your pocket and find out if it feels different. Or you can ask, well, at the moment, I always say, at the moment you are depressed, at the moment you're really not well. To already suggest it will not always be like that. At the moment, it's like that. And just think if there was a miracle and suddenly it would be different, what would it be like? This is the other way around. What was it before, or what could it be like?
If there was some kind of a miracle.
Yeah, and then how would that be? And then they can also maybe can get some kind of sense how could that be? And also you can find an image for that. And I like to work with images and like with this question of miracle, or it it's not always like that. When is it different? Asking for the exception. And then you can this is one or two ways to handle that. And of course
Beautiful.
first get them to some kind of relaxation just by a normal shiatsu. Uh, and once they feel relaxed after shiatsu treatment, I can suggest, well, take some of this home, of this feeling, and just maybe remember tonight or tomorrow what was it like, and so bring it back on. Or again, what kind of symbol could you find a symbol for this feeling and put it in your pocket?
Got it.
So to remember that, yeah.
Yes,
I
to,
like
to to fill
images
up
for
to fill up the pockets or the bag with all kinds of gold nuggets, all kinds of resources.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And so,
Yeah.
so they have some kind of anchor to bring
Mm.
the yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, you've been doing this work for a while now, and the work that you do is not easy, and as a therapist, there's also danger of burning out, right?
Mhm.
And being affected by working with children and disabilities, working with children and adults with trauma, working even with people on burnouts. It's not easy, right? uh, so what do you do to prevent yourself from burning out, of being affected?
Uh, I think that, of course, normal self-care, getting enough sleep, eating properly, all those things which you know. But what helped me a lot is the qigong, the experience from qigong, from centering. Well, of course, I have also many stressful situations, and whenever the more stressful it gets, the more quiet I will get. And just go back to I have sometimes this image of a room, a rest room. Not a rest room is the wrong word in English. It's a room where you can rest.
A resting room, yeah. Yes.
Uh, so or I can go and have a good time or and just relax. So this in
Mm.
myself in my like hara or something. Always go back there And this is quite, and I can feel that from as a physical sensation, and also grounding by your feet, by your body weight. When at school I used to wear quite heavy boots because there was a lot of children going wild and this and that. And when I stand there with my boots, it's a physical feeling of, yeah, this is going on there, and here I stand and heavy and centered, and then let's see what happens. This has been quite
Interesting.
helpful.
So that was an anchor for you too, the boots.
Yeah.
Amazing. Good.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for that, because I know I don't think it's talked enough about. I know for myself, and when I was also a clinic owner and working with many therapists, we worked a lot with trauma and pain. It's and working with organizations, going to their facilities, frontline workers, people that work with women in trauma. Burnout rate is very high, and secondary trauma, which is also not talked enough about, with being exposed to trauma, it can be traumatizing,
Mhm.
even for experts, right? And oftentimes I was amazed how little those organizations did for their people. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and or sometimes didn't do anything. It's no structure put in place to care for them, or even when they themselves were struggling with trauma. Yeah, I found it always quite amazing, and it's so important, that self-care aspect in any
But
kind of caring
where
profession. Yeah.
I used to live, they started a program about resilience.
Mhm.
They give courses, programs for resilience for the workers, and I'm part of this program. I did a course for them to what can you do for yourself to not fall down so quickly.
Fantastic,
Mhm.
fantastic.
So it's
Uh,
a dilemma. Mm.
and this was with an organization, or
No, the school where I worked,
okay, the
uh,
school. Yeah,
I retired now, but for the teachers who work in that school,
good.
they
And
have.
you worked on? Did you work on the teachers themselves too? Did,
Yeah.
did they allow you to? Oh, wow,
I did course teach, not shiatsu, but what things you have to have in mind to be to not to burn out. Yeah.
fantastic. Well, this is a good time to open the floor to the people that have joined us here live. Uh, so if somebody wants to ask a question or comment on our conversation, just raise your hand, and it'll be great to hear from you. Yeah, just let me know by raising your hand if you want to ask a question. If you have any comments to what you heard today from Barbara and myself, go ahead, Vladimir. Just unmute yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you, Michael, thank you, Barbara. Uh, I'm from Serbia, and here we don't have much awareness about the job that you two do, that I'm starting, and I'm feeling that it's my job to do. And it's wonderful to hear those words about children and approach to children. It's really great. It's really great, and I couldn't agree more from my personal experience that qigong is great thing for centering and for burnout and for releasing the patient's trauma or client's trauma as you wish. And that's all. And thank you for this interview. I liked it so much. I enjoyed it.
Well,
Yes.
Vladimir, thank you for that
Whereabouts do you
input.
live in Serbia,
I
Vladimir?
didn't hear you, sorry.
Where do you
Where?
live, in Serbia? Which part of Serbia?
My
i'm
son-in-law
in
came.
I'm in the capital in Belgrade.
All right. Mm.
Well, good for you, Vladimir, for choosing to work with it. and I believe more and more shiatsu therapists, consciously can work with children and trauma. The world needs us more than ever. So thank you for sharing that, Vladimir.
Just one more thing, if I
Sure.
may. I had one client with PTSD and general anxiety disorders and everything, and she lost her mom, and she brought her son to me, and he wanted to be there, and we worked, and we released something from his stomach, and after that, it passed about 4 6 months. I don't know how much time from that treatment. He went to his kindergarten, and they asked, "What are your best friends?" And he told my name, and he brought toys and everything here to play with me and everything. So I feel really inspired by Barbara's talking today, because I felt it with that little boy, and it's really miraculous how one treatment can change perspective and everything. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So good
Vladimir.
luck with your work, Vladimir.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Anybody else would like to add a comment or question? No. Okay. Go ahead, Seattle.
Hello. So, thank you very much for the Zoom meeting. I'm dealing with trauma, dealing with. I've been practicing Shiatsu for a little over 15 years, and I think the burnout side of it is definitely something that I've ran into to a degree. What I get burned out over is, and I'm glad you had mentioned about ways to talk to people about who are going through trauma or going through where they're feel burned out. I see a lot of clients who just don't seem to have a lot of hope. Everything's going wrong. Everything's hurting them. Everything's wrong in their life. And that's probably one of the most difficult clients that I deal with. I work with a lot of professional athletes, a lot of people throughout the Seattle area, and people who are younger and healthier, who are just little out. Those are easy people to treat, and I enjoy treating those people. But the traumatic, the life is going downhill real quick. That energy that's just gone. That has been one of the most difficult people to treat that I've experienced over the last 15 years. So if you have any tools that you might not have mentioned that can kind of help to help those individuals who are just struggling with that they don't feel any hope, that would be really appreciated.
Thank you for sharing that. Barbara, you want to answer?
Well, of course, what I first would do again is, that's how it is. Appreciate you don't have any hope. This is where we start from there. And of course, also there's nothing to do with Shiatsu, but what you always have to find is some kind of sense. Whatever. Why do I get up in the morning? It can be a small thing. Huh? It just occurs to me, some people in old patient people's homes who have nothing to do anymore, no perspective. Maybe it's not such a good example, but they made an experiment with two groups. One group is just there, and the other group, they had plants in their room. They have to look after those plants, and they lived 1 year longer, just to have something to do. And this can be a really small thing. So you would, it might be a good thing to just look together with this patient. What makes you get up in the morning? Who is waiting for you? And this is more often than not, you will find somebody. But I worked a lot. I read a lot about Viktor Frankl. This was a psychoanalyst in the Nazi time, and he went to a concentration camp as a psychologist, and he lost all his family there. And he wrote books about how to survive this kind of difficult situation.
Extreme conditions. Yeah.
And it was always this thing about sense. What makes me get what do I do today for somebody? Whatever that could be. I can smile for somebody, I could share my bread with somebody. Or now, of course, these days it's different. Smiling or just making a small good thing for my bus driver or whatever. Just look for a small thing you can do. This this is how I survive sometimes. Of course, I can get looking at the world situations, you can get desperate. But then I say, well, today, what can I do for somebody? And then you always find something.
Thank you. That's I love that. It's my the man who taught me the Shiatsu that I practice. It's a technique belonging to his family, dating back quite a long time in Japan. And the one thing at 78 years old, he always says, if you want to be healthy, be happy. And
Yeah.
it's a simple phrase. And a lot of my clients, I talk to them about that. The one thing I always tell them is find what your happy is. As much as I love practicing Shiatsu, coaching soccer, which is what I also do, is actually my massive joy. And getting out on a soccer field just completely cleanses me. And I try to really help my clients who are going through those troubling times to explore within themselves, explore outside themselves some things that maybe they truly have joy in, or some things that they've never experienced, because it really seems to be the case that when you can find the little amounts of joy, it changes everything. And a lot of people, they focus on the things that are bringing them pain. And so I'm trying to flip it with them, and that has helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that helps.
Joy.
But I would like to add to this too. First of all, the power of hope is incredible, because I've also had the honor of working with Holocaust survivors in the past, and they were such great teachers to me.
Yeah.
And you know, the clients that come to us give us gold nuggets, like Barbara says too. You know, we not only help them find gold nuggets, but they help us harness some gold nuggets. And hope is a powerful vehicle that helps survivors of even of extreme conditions. But when someone comes to you and loses all hope, there's also a lot of shame attached to it. And oftentimes what I find, yes, I totally agree with Barbara, full presence and acceptance to their state, because oftentimes, you know, your office will be maybe the only office or the only space where they would say that out loud, right? That they're giving up. What's the point? What's the point of living? So this could be, just know that, you know, this is maybe the first time that they're saying it out loud. And just by recognizing them, hearing them out, holding that space, that by itself can bring a shift. Another thing that I find helpful is when someone is losing all hope, they're also in a state of overwhelm, which means, you know, if you follow the polyvagal theory, you know, there's different stages to your nervous system, and a lot of people hit that free state. And once you hit that free state, and in a way you can't de-escalate from that state because you don't have the resources, or it's just there's so much going on in life. If you can refer them to that chart and in a way explain to them what's going on from a nervous system perspective, I find not always, but sometimes that takes away the shame. Because shame, in a way, can be a very toxic emotion that will imprison them in the state. But when you explain it in that way, that I oftentimes find that takes away, not always, but that takes away the shame. So then there's an understanding. Okay, I'm just my nervous system is in this state, so all I have to do is therefore to find tools and resources to bring myself back.
Yeah,
I
that's
hope, I
wonderful.
hope that helps. Yeah.
I have to learn more about it. I studied it sometime, but I forgot all those details about the nervous system. I just do it by intuition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, anybody else? Maybe we have time for one more. Anybody else would want to add or ask a question? Annalil, Carol? No? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'd
yeah, go
be
ahead.
just a little curious about working with children with special needs or additional needs. Have you worked with children with, say, cerebral palsy or conditions like that, or is it mostly with children with behavioral issues, trauma issues?
With children, I work more with behavior issues, but I do a lot of work with cerebral palsy patients with adults. This I do every week. They go there once a week to a special place where they work, if they can work a little bit, and I give them shiatsu. Yeah,
Okay.
but this is not shiatsu like you're supposed to do. Please lie down on a mat and now turn around. And they just sit there in their wheelchair, and we see what he can do. Yeah.
So you take on the same approach, you just work from where they are, and yeah. So how do you work? What does your treatment look like? Do you do a diagnosis?
No, I don't
No.
diagnose. Not a classical Hara or whatever. No way. I just be there, and if they can speak, I will ask them, where do you want my hands to go? No, where do you want touched? And then we work from there. And if they can't, sometimes they're really tied up to this wheelchair and I can't do all that much. Quite often work with the hands and the feet, which I can reach easily,
Okay.
or with the neck or head, whatever if they can say. Of course, I will follow what they say. Or some they take my hands to wherever they want. They can't speak.
Okay. And would you work then on points? Is that the way you would work? Would you work?
Sometimes, but not so much.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have this idea now. If I do this point, this will happen. I can do it sometimes with normal treatments. You use a special point, but I don't do that with disabled people. I
Okay.
just sit there and see where they want my hands to be.
Okay.
From there, yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Long, or from before they can answer to that. But I've been working there for over 10 years, so they know me, and then step by step something can develop.
Beautiful.
Okay.
I know Bill Palmer, Annalene, I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he's worked a lot with cerebral palsy. I
Yeah,
think he had
he
it. He
gave
had
me
it
one.
himself. He had it himself when he was a kid, if I'm remembering
Yeah.
correctly. Yeah.
He wrote one article in my book also about working with disabilities, and his is the same approach. There's nothing wrong with you. When your children come, they all the time, or all their lives, they feel I'm different. I have something wrong with me. But it's not like that. It's you. Of course, you are different, but everybody is different.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's quite a good approach, I think.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Do you have the book there beside you, Barbara?
Yeah, I do, but it's in German, unfortunately. But I'm
Okay.
still thinking, have it translated or not, but I have to look for a publisher. It's
Fantastic.
about shiatsu and encounter. What happens to between the people who are in touch with in Shiatsu. And it's a collection of articles from different people in the Shiatsu world and from myself.
Beautiful. Well, we'll put that in our group. I'm sure there's many German speaking people there too, people that can read German, and hopefully we'll get that translated to English and other languages. It's another great resource. There's so many books lately that have come out. I feel like in our Shiatsu community, there's a renaissance in many ways, and I'm so excited about it. And excited to have you, Barbara, here and sharing your experience, your insights, and your work with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having this opportunity to talk to you. Yeah, I loved it.
Good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here and in the group. Thank you, and have yourself a great weekend wherever you are. Much love.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.